There is something that happened recently that you were never supposed to know about this soon. A conversation took place behind closed doors. No announcements were made. No messages were sent to you. No one mentioned your name in your presence. Yet somehow, everything began shifting from that moment forward. It started in a quiet room. The kind of room where difficult truths are often spoken softly. A room where silence carries more weight than words. Your person sat across from their brother, carrying thoughts they had hidden for far too long. At first, the conversation seemed ordinary. Family matters. Daily concerns. Small pieces of life passing from one heart to another. But then something unexpected happened. Your name entered the conversation. And when it did, the atmosphere changed. There was a pause. Not an uncomfortable pause. A meaningful one. The kind of silence that appears when someone finally speaks about what truly matters. Your person looked away for a moment before speaking again. Because some feelings become difficult to hide when they have lived inside the heart for a very long time. The brother noticed immediately. He noticed what others had missed. The hesitation. The emotion. The careful choice of words. And most importantly, the affection that could no longer be disguised as simple admiration. What makes this moment so remarkable is that your person did not intend to reveal so much. Yet sometimes the truth finds its own path into the light. And that day, it did. If you have spent seasons wondering whether your presence truly matters to someone, whether your kindness was remembered, whether your patience was seen, then listen carefully. Because this conversation was not centered on your appearance. It was not centered on temporary attraction. It was not centered on shallow reasons that fade with time. Something much deeper was being discussed. The brother wanted to understand why your name carried such emotion. Why your absence could change an entire mood. Why certain memories seemed impossible for your person to forget. And the answers he received surprised him. One by one, stories began unfolding. Small moments. Quiet moments. Moments you may have forgotten completely. Yet your person remembered every detail. The way you remained kind when you had every reason to walk away. The way you carried burdens without asking others to carry them for you. The way you continued moving forward even when life felt unfair. These were not ordinary memories. These were the moments that revealed your character. And character leaves a deeper imprint than most people realize. Especially on a heart that has been searching for something genuine. As the conversation continued, another realization emerged. The brother began seeing you through your person's eyes. That changed everything. Because before that day, he only knew fragments. Pieces. Assumptions. Second-hand impressions. But now he was hearing the full story. For the first time, he understood why your name continued appearing in conversations. Why your memory remained present even during long periods of silence. Why certain decisions seemed connected to thoughts of you. And as understanding grew, something unexpected happened. His skepticism began disappearing. Slowly. Quietly. Almost invisibly. Yet what happened next was never meant to be revealed. Because the brother asked a question that caught your person completely off guard. A question so direct. So honest. That for several seconds, no answer came at all. The room fell silent. And in that silence, a truth stood waiting. A truth your person had protected for longer than anyone realized. But the answer that finally came would begin a chain of events neither of them expected. And that answer is where this story takes an unexpected turn. Because the very next word spoken in that room would lead the brother to make a decision about you that nobody saw coming. And once that decision was made, nothing would remain exactly the same. The silence lingered longer than either of them expected. Your person lowered their eyes for a moment, as though searching for the right words somewhere deep within themselves. The brother waited. He did not interrupt. He sensed that what was about to be spoken had been held back for a very long time. Then finally, your person answered. Not with a dramatic confession. Not with grand declarations. But with a truth so simple that it carried even greater weight. They said that whenever life became confusing, your memory brought clarity. Whenever disappointment arrived, thoughts of you somehow restored hope. And whenever they questioned whether genuine people still existed in the world, they remembered you. The brother sat quietly. Because those were not the words of someone speaking about a passing connection. Those were the words of someone whose heart had been changed. Perhaps more deeply than they themselves had realized. If this sounds familiar. If you have ever loved quietly. If you have ever cared deeply while expecting nothing in return. Then you understand how powerful unspoken feelings can become. Sometimes the strongest emotions are not the loudest. Sometimes they are the ones protected in silence. And that is exactly what was happening here. The conversation continued. But now the brother was listening differently. Before, he had been curious. Now, he was invested. He wanted to understand why your presence carried such significance. Why your absence seemed to leave such a noticeable space. Why certain memories remained untouched by time. Then another question emerged. A question your person did not expect. The brother leaned forward and asked. What is it about them that you cannot let go of? The room became still again. Outside, life continued as normal. But inside that room, something important was unfolding. Your person took a slow breath. Because the answer was not easy to explain. How do you explain the comfort of a soul that feels familiar? How do you explain the peace someone brings without even trying? How do you explain the quiet strength of a person who continues showing kindness after experiencing disappointment? Some things cannot be measured. They can only be felt. And that was exactly what your person was struggling to describe. Eventually, they began speaking. They talked about your resilience. About the way you kept moving forward through difficult seasons. About the silent sacrifices you made that few people ever noticed. About the compassion you offered even when your own heart needed healing. The brother listened carefully. Because the picture forming in his mind was very different from the one he had carried before. He was no longer seeing fragments. He was seeing the whole person. And what he saw challenged assumptions he had held for far too long. Yet that was not the moment that changed everything. No. Something even more significant was waiting just ahead. Because as the conversation deepened, the brother began revealing thoughts of his own. Thoughts he had never shared before. Observations he had kept to himself. And one by one, he started mentioning things he had noticed about your person. Patterns. Changes. Behaviors. Small details that seemed insignificant until they were placed together. The way your person smiled when speaking about you. The way their mood shifted after hearing news about you. The way certain decisions always seemed connected to thoughts they never openly discussed. At first, your person tried to dismiss it. But the brother would not let the subject go. Because now he was seeing something clearly. Something your person had spent a long time avoiding. Sometimes another person can recognize our feelings before we fully accept them ourselves. And that realization was beginning to settle over the room. Slowly. Quietly. Powerfully. The brother finally said something that neither of them could ignore. The words were gentle. There was no pressure in them. Only honesty. And when those words were spoken, your person became completely silent. Not because they disagreed. But because they knew the words were true. Deep down, they had always known. Yet hearing someone else say it aloud made everything feel real in a way it never had before. That moment created a shift. A shift that would eventually lead to a decision. A decision connected to you. A decision that would begin opening doors that had remained closed for far too long. But before that decision could be made, the brother needed to reveal one final observation. One thing he had noticed weeks earlier. Something your person never realized anyone had seen. And when he finally shared what he witnessed, the entire direction of the conversation changed. The brother hesitated before speaking. Not because he doubted what he had seen, but because he understood the weight of what he was about to reveal. Some observations seem small when they happen. Yet later, they become the missing piece that explains everything. Your person waited. The room had grown unusually quiet. Even the ordinary sounds of the day seemed distant now. Then the brother finally spoke. He reminded your person of a moment from several weeks earlier. A moment so ordinary that it could have easily been forgotten. Yet he had not forgotten it. Because something about it stayed with him. He described seeing your person sitting alone. Not sad. Not distracted. Just thoughtful. Holding a conversation with someone nearby. Your name came up unexpectedly. Only for a brief moment. Only a few words. Yet everything changed after that. The brother remembered the expression that crossed your person's face. A look that appeared before they could hide it. A look that revealed more truth than an entire conversation ever could. Hope. That was what he saw. Not longing. Not regret. Hope. The kind of hope people carry when someone genuinely matters. The kind of hope that survives even after delays, uncertainty, and unanswered questions. As those memories resurfaced, your person became very still. Because they knew exactly which moment the brother was describing. And they knew he was right. Sometimes we reveal our deepest feelings in the moments when we think nobody is watching. The brother had noticed one of those moments. And now there was no avoiding what it meant. For years, many people around your person had focused on practical concerns. Timing. Circumstances. Responsibilities. Distance. Life's endless complications. But the brother was looking at something different. He was looking at the heart. And what he saw convinced him of something important. This was not simply a passing chapter. This was not a connection built on convenience. This was something that had endured. Something that remained present despite time. Something that had continued growing in silence. If you have ever wondered whether your patience has meaning, whether your quiet prayers have purpose, whether your unseen strength matters, then listen closely. Because there are moments happening beyond your view that are shaping outcomes you cannot yet see. The brother understood that now. Perhaps for the first time. And as that understanding deepened, another question entered his mind. One he could no longer ignore. He looked directly at your person and asked. If they knew all of this, would they be surprised? The answer came immediately. Yes. Without hesitation. Without uncertainty. Yes. Because your person believed you had no idea how deeply you were appreciated. No idea how often your name entered their thoughts. No idea how much respect had quietly grown over time. The brother leaned back. A thoughtful expression crossed his face. And then he said something unexpected. Something that neither of them had considered before. He suggested that perhaps the greatest obstacle was not circumstance. Perhaps it was misunderstanding. Perhaps two people were carrying similar questions. Similar hopes. Similar uncertainties. While each assumed the other could never understand. The room fell silent once more. But this silence felt different. It felt like the beginning of realization. And realization has a remarkable way of changing everything. Yet what happened next was never part of the original conversation. Because the brother suddenly remembered something. A detail. A comment. A situation involving another family member. At first, it seemed unrelated. Almost insignificant. But the moment he mentioned it, your person's expression changed completely. The atmosphere shifted. The conversation took an entirely unexpected turn. Because this forgotten detail connected directly to you. And once the connection became clear, both of them realized they had overlooked something important for a very long time. Something hidden in plain sight. Something that explained certain reactions. Certain delays. Certain unanswered questions. But that was not the moment that changed everything. The moment that changed everything came seconds later. The brother stood up and walked toward the window. He stared outside for a long moment before turning back. When he spoke again, his voice carried a certainty that had not been there before. He had reached a conclusion. A conclusion about you. A conclusion about your person. And most importantly, a conclusion about what needed to happen next. The words were simple. Yet their impact would ripple far beyond that room. Because after hearing them, your person made a promise. A quiet promise. One that nobody else heard. One that would remain hidden for a little while longer. But that promise became the first step toward a future neither of them had dared to discuss openly. And just before your person revealed exactly what they intended to do, the brother asked one final question. A question so unexpected. So revealing. That it stopped everything in its tracks. And the answer to that question would uncover a truth that had been waiting in silence all along. The question lingered in the air. For a moment, neither of them spoke. It was not because the answer was difficult. It was because the answer carried consequences. The brother looked directly at your person and asked. If the opportunity appeared tomorrow, if every obstacle suddenly disappeared, would you choose them without hesitation? The room became completely still. No nervous laughter. No attempt to change the subject. No careful avoidance. Only silence. And sometimes silence tells the truth before words ever do. Your person lowered their head slightly. A soft smile appeared. The kind of smile that comes from certainty. The kind of smile people cannot fake. Then came the answer. Yes. Just one word. But it carried the weight of everything that had been left unsaid. Years of reflection. Moments of doubt. Private hopes. Quiet prayers. Unspoken feelings. All contained within a single answer. The brother nodded slowly. Because that answer confirmed what he had already begun to suspect. Yet something unexpected happened next. Instead of continuing the discussion, he asked another question. A very different question. One that shifted the focus away from your person entirely. He asked. What do you think they have been carrying all this time? The question struck deeper than anyone expected. Because until that moment, the conversation had centered on feelings. Now it centered on understanding. Your person became thoughtful. They began reflecting on everything they knew about you. The disappointments you had endured. The patience you had shown. The strength you had developed through circumstances that would have discouraged many others. And then something remarkable happened. For the first time that day, the conversation stopped being about what your person wanted. It became about what you deserved. That changed everything. Because genuine affection matures when it shifts from desire to care. When someone begins asking not, what do I receive? But rather, what does this person need? The brother noticed the change immediately. And it reassured him. More than any confession could have. If this message resonates with you. If you have spent years giving more than you received. If you have quietly wondered whether anyone truly sees the burdens you carry. Then understand this. The most meaningful connections are often built by people who have learned compassion through experience. And compassion was becoming the center of this conversation. As they continued talking, another hidden layer began revealing itself. The brother admitted something. At first, he had been uncertain about you. Not because of anything you had done, but because he simply did not know enough. People often form opinions from incomplete information. Fragments. Rumors. Assumptions. Yet now, after hearing everything, he realized how much he had misunderstood. That realization humbled him. And humility opened the door to something new. Acceptance. Not forced acceptance. Not reluctant acceptance. Genuine acceptance. The kind that grows naturally when understanding replaces assumption. But that was not the moment that changed everything. The moment that changed everything came when the brother shared something he had never told your person before. A conversation he himself had experienced months earlier. A conversation involving another member of the family. At first, it seemed unrelated. Yet as he began describing it, your person's expression shifted. Because every detail pointed toward the same surprising truth. More people had noticed your impact than either of them realized. More people had been paying attention. More people had quietly formed opinions. And those opinions were not what your person expected. The brother explained that your name had surfaced before. Not frequently. Not dramatically. But enough to leave an impression. Enough for people to remember. Enough for people to become curious. And that realization stunned your person. Because they had spent so much time assuming they were carrying these feelings alone. Yet now they were discovering that your presence had touched more lives than they knew. The pieces were beginning to connect. Slowly. Carefully. Almost like a puzzle revealing its image one section at a time. Then the brother said something that neither of them could ignore. Something so simple that it sounded obvious once spoken aloud. Yet it changed the entire direction of the conversation. He said, "Maybe the reason things have taken so long isn't because the path was closed." Your person looked up. The brother continued. "Maybe it's because everyone involved needed time to become the people they were meant to be." The words settled into the silence. Neither argued. Neither disagreed. Because deep down, both knew there was wisdom in that thought. Some blessings arrive quickly. Others require growth. Healing. Preparation. Perspective. And perhaps this story had always belonged to the second category. Yet what happened next was never expected. Because just as the conversation seemed to be reaching its conclusion, the brother revealed one final piece of information. A piece of information he had kept to himself until that very moment. Something he had recently learned. Something connected directly to you. The moment he spoke the first few words, your person's eyes widened. Their heart began racing. Not from fear. From realization. Because this hidden detail explained something that had confused them for a very long time. Something they had questioned repeatedly. Something they had almost given up trying to understand. And once the entire truth was revealed, a decision would be made that neither of them could take back. But before the brother finished speaking, before the final piece was placed into the puzzle, before your person understood what had been hidden all along, the conversation reached the very edge of a revelation that would change everything they believed about you. Your person stared at their brother, waiting. The room felt smaller now. Not because anything had physically changed, but because the truth was drawing closer. And truth has a way of filling every corner of a room before it is ever spoken aloud. The brother took a slow breath. He seemed to be choosing his words carefully. Not out of uncertainty, but out of respect. Because some revelations deserve gentleness. especially when they concern someone who has already carried enough unanswered questions. Then he finally began. He explained that a few weeks earlier, he had encountered something completely unexpected. A conversation. A passing remark. A simple observation from someone who had no idea how significant their words would become. At the time, he barely thought about it. Yet afterward, the memory stayed with him. And now he understood why. The information pointed toward you. Not directly. Not obviously. But unmistakably. As he described the details, your person's expression changed. Slowly at first. Then all at once. Because a pattern was emerging. A pattern neither of them had fully recognized before. Certain moments that once seemed disconnected were suddenly linked together. Questions that never had answers now began making sense. Long periods of silence. Unexpected delays. Opportunities that almost appeared and then disappeared. Reactions that felt confusing at the time. One by one, they started fitting together. And with every piece that fell into place, your person realized something important. You had been carrying your own journey. Your own challenges. Your own season of growth. For so long, they had focused on what they felt. What they hoped. What they feared. But now they were seeing a larger picture. A picture that included your healing, your strength, and your quiet perseverance. The brother spoke softly. Maybe neither of you were being kept apart. Your person looked at him carefully. The brother continued. Maybe both of you were being prepared. Those words settled deep into the silence. Because preparation rarely feels exciting while it is happening. Most of the time, it feels like waiting. Like uncertainty. Like wondering whether your efforts matter. If you have ever prayed for something meaningful and felt as though nothing was changing. If you have ever remained faithful while answers seemed delayed. If you have ever questioned whether your patience was accomplishing anything. Then you understand this kind of season. Growth often happens where no one can see it. Including us. And perhaps that was the hidden truth all along. Not that doors were closed. But that hearts were still learning. Still healing. Still becoming ready. Yet what happened next surprised even the brother. Because for the first time during the entire conversation, your person spoke with complete certainty. No hesitation. No confusion. No doubt. They admitted something they had never said aloud before. Something they had only acknowledged in the privacy of their own thoughts. They said that every time they tried convincing themselves to move on completely, something always brought them back to reflection. Not obsession. Not attachment. Reflection. A quiet awareness that the story somehow felt unfinished. The brother listened carefully. Then nodded. Because he understood exactly what was being said. Some people leave memories. Others leave lessons. But every once in a while, someone leaves a lasting imprint. The kind that remains even after time passes. The kind that quietly influences future choices. The kind that changes who we become. And according to your person, that was exactly what had happened. You had changed them. Not through dramatic events. Not through extraordinary circumstances. But through your example. Your resilience. Your character. Your ability to keep showing kindness despite life's disappointments. That realization created another silence. Yet this silence felt peaceful. Almost sacred. Like two people standing at the edge of understanding. But that was not the moment that changed everything. No. The moment that changed everything arrived seconds later. The brother reached into his pocket and pulled out something unexpected. A small note. A reminder. Something he had written down weeks ago and nearly forgotten. At first, your person looked confused. Then the brother handed it over. As your person read the words written there, their entire expression shifted. Their eyes widened. Their breathing slowed. And for a brief moment, they seemed completely unable to speak. Because the note contained a detail. A single detail connected to you. A detail that confirmed something neither of them had fully understood until now. Something hidden beneath months of assumptions. Months of uncertainty. Months of unanswered questions. The brother watched silently. Because he already knew what was written. But your person was reading it for the first time. And the realization unfolding inside them was impossible to hide. The note did not contain a confession. It did not contain a dramatic secret. It contained something far more powerful. Proof. Proof that a certain belief they had carried about you was completely wrong. And once that belief collapsed, everything else would begin changing with it. Your person slowly looked up from the note. Their eyes filled with a mixture of hope, surprise, and understanding. Then they spoke 5 words that would set everything into motion. 5 words that would lead to a decision. A conversation. And a future neither of them had expected. But before those words fully left their lips. Before the brother heard the complete sentence. Before the hidden truth finally revealed itself. A realization emerged that would transform the entire story.